All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It's 1 p.m. in San Francisco right now. Beautiful day with clear skies. I am Megan Callahan, the City Center Manager of Cosentino, San Francisco, and I am joined today by three industry experts. Kiko Singh of Braden Hughes Design Studios, Rob Polacek of Rose Bernard Studio, and Vanessa Waldner of the Nest Group. I will now give them each a moment to introduce themselves. Kiko, why don't you get us started and tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Kiko Singh from Braden Hughes Design Studios. I'm a partner and principal there. We are located in San Francisco. There is about 20 of us. We are actually celebrating our 30 years of being in the business this year, which is pretty exciting.
Thank you for joining us, Kiko. Rob, would you care to tell us about yourself?
Sure thing. Hi there, everyone. Rob Polacek. I'm founding partner, creative director at Rose Bernard Studio. We're a concepts, design, and branding firm with locations in San Francisco and Chicago.
Rob, we're glad to have you join us on this panel. And last but not least, Vanessa, could you please share something about yourself and the Nest Group?
Sure. My name is Vanessa Waldner, and I started the Nest Group about 6 years ago out of San Francisco, but we created the company to do things a little bit differently in purchasing, and we created the company completely remotely. So my team works out of 9 different states right now, and it makes things a lot of fun, but it's really been able to capture some incredible talent in our industry.
I love that you are already set up for remote work.
Yeah.
That worked out nicely. Well, thank you all for joining us.
Sorry, COVID took the remote working just a little bit, the work balance a little bit crazy to another level.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. As we know, 2020 has been a very different year for everyone. The current situation has brought about a lot of changes, and we have learned quite a bit. Today, our experts will lead us through what to look forward to in the future and how we can prepare and adapt in regards to hospitality design. So let's get started with the questions. First question, what projects are currently on your drawing boards that will be entering the market in the next 2 years?
I'll go ahead and start. At Rose Bernard, we're working on 4 F&B concepts opening up in the next 2 years in Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur, which are very exciting for us. They're all within a hotel complex. We're also opening up 4 hotels in the Bay Area within the next 2 years, and a handful of local Bay Area restaurants. So it's really keeping us, busy through this existing time period of COVID, and giving us an opportunity to really look towards the future of design, whether it's in F&B and or the guest stay.
So for us at Braden Hughes, we are actually opening a Canopy by Hilton next month in Baltimore, which is super exciting. A very interesting time to have a hotel opening for sure, but we're just really excited about having this property open and for the world to see. We also have a Montage Resort in Big Sky, Montana, that will be opening in 2021. We just had the model room review for that, and it's on track, looking fantastic. So I'd say that's one of our big openings as well that I'd like to highlight. We have a handful of other stuff as well, but those are the 2 kind of main ones to talk about.
Awesome. And have you had to pivot your plans because of the current situation, and how so?
We haven't. So far we haven't. None of our clients even asked us to do that, which has been great. And they really look to us as the experts in the industry to help them navigate through this situation and really look towards the future and not panic and redesign because of what's happening to us right now. And so, the biggest thing that we're looking at is, our clients are asking us, what happens to the buffet in a restaurant, and particularly in hotels. And we think with new technologies and looking at new ways of providing a guest experience, we'll get there. And we think that, just from an operational point of view, buffets happen in restaurants and hotels for a reason. And until someone can figure out the operational model, otherwise, we're going to continue to develop and design them as best as we can.
For us as well, we haven't experienced anyone wanting to really change the design due to COVID. Obviously, there's, I think, operationally a lot that's, kind of layered during this time, just in terms of needing to social distance. But a lot of the projects that we work on have a lot of flexibility built into the plan, so they haven't been impacted that much. An example of a project that really kind of was impacted timing-wise due to COVID was the Grand Hyatt SFO. And Robbie actually, their team worked on the food and beverage outlets, and we did the guest room and public area component of the project. And we actually had the general manager, Henning Knopper, on a panel in last June to talk about just the different COVID things that they had to work through. But, the design was really able to kind of be left in place, and they didn't have to do anything that was radical to any of the spaces. So that was good news.
We've been seeing a little bit of mostly space planning and reworking spaces. A couple of projects that we've installed during COVID. One of them was the Hotel June, and the other one was Fairmont San Jose. And both of those, we just, while they were installing, they reworked the spaces. But otherwise, I think Robbie was saying, we haven't seen a lot of huge changes just yet. Maybe some materials, but other than that, we haven't.
I think for us, it has our corporate projects have definitely had us come back, and we're doing a lot of space planning for corporate so that people have enough space for everybody to get back to work.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. What does the future of hotel restaurants and bars look like?
I honestly think that the future holds exactly what it looked like back in January when we, weren't affected by this. There's always going to be a need for people to break bread together as humans. It's a cult of who we are as being together. I think there is going to be more of a focus on localization, creating outdoor spaces like you see here, getting people to be back, connected to nature, where hotels have the opportunity to have more outdoor F&B experiences. I think is definitely going to be a trend that we're going to see because of COVID. But in terms of design, I think, again, localization, connecting with the outdoors. This is the project we're working on in Malaysia, this beautiful outdoor water garden on the 66th floor of the building. So it's just gathering, getting people to want to experience theater through restaurants. I always feel that when you choose to dine out, particularly in hotels, you choose to have an experience, and it's like theater, where the food is the price of admission, and we're always going to crave that experience and want that. And so we're keeping our chin up and an eye on the ball in terms of what the future holds for restaurants, and particularly how it starts to blend the indoor and outdoor environments.
I really like.
So, Rob, I have a follow-up conversation. You mentioned my favorite thing, which is brunch. How is brunch going to see its way through COVID?
Yeah, there's so many millennials in San Francisco right now who are dying because they can't have brunch, right? And so, I personally think brunch is kind of a funny thing when you see people standing in line for eggs. But It's more than that. It's about getting together. It's about breaking bread together and sharing experiences in your lives and your stories, and we're all craving that right now. And so I think once we're kind of past this, that there's going to be a more desire to go out to eat, and it will be more celebratory at the same time.
Well, I think that they should be commended, especially in cities like San Francisco, where they've made such an incredible experience already at being out, eating outside. It's they put the lights up, and they've really been so creative, and it's incredible that it's really become such a different experience and fun, and like you said, celebratory.
Yeah, if you walk down my street, I live in Bernal Heights and down Cortland, every single bar and restaurant on that street has a little parklet outside. Yeah. And also always been a neighborhood that's kind of one of those old school San Francisco neighborhoods where everybody says hi and kind of chats. And so what's great is it's kind of brought that layer back to our kind of central little town, because for the last 6 months, it's felt like, nobody lives here. So it's pretty exciting.
I think that also too, one of the biggest changes in the present for restaurant design is kind of the death of the casual, let's go grab a drink or a bite after work, because we're not working together, but then also the need for a reservation right now is it really kind of puts a damper on impromptu get-togethers. And so having the ability to, having to like make reservations right now is a little bit of an unnecessary, unfortunately, of how we're used to just jumping into restaurants, particularly in urban environments where you could just be walking down the street and see a little cafe and just grab a seat because it's available and have an opportunity to share a memory together.
I think one thing that I found really interesting is the need for the restaurant industry, obviously, to be able to be flexible and learn how to pivot. Which I think a lot of them have been able to do. There's a couple of pictures of Avow, which is our restaurant that opened last year up in Napa. And they, have opened outdoor seating outside. They've been doing takeout, but just being able to kind of be really creative with that so that people still are getting that experience of, well, I could go to the store and buy all these ingredients and make it myself. And it's like, no, still kind of customizing something that kind of let somebody bring that experience home with them, or they can take it on a picnic. I think that's been really interesting to see. And I think it's something that moving forward, I hope doesn't go away. I know just within our private club market, just seeing a lot of clubs go from, since they've had to close their indoor dining, but now they do takeout for people who live there. And I think that that's been kind of nice to have that offering for people who just, hey, I really don't want to cook tonight. I don't want to go all the way into town, to have that kind of easily accessible, or even buy groceries from them. They have grocery kits. So I think just having that ability to be flexible in terms of operations has been what's gotten a lot of them through this downturn.
Awesome. Thank you. I love how you all touched on the fact that the experience of the dining experience is huge, even more so now. And I love your parallel, Rob, about comparing it to theater. I think that does have a huge impact on, where people are choosing to eat, the experience that they're having, and how that impacts hotels. How has the hospitality industry had to adjust their plans to accommodate meals for guests?
Room service is, and I think all three of us could talk to this of, room service always has been the kind of the bane of existence for hotel operations, right? It's always really, it's costly, right? And so, but now all of a sudden room service is back, right? So it's kind of the scratching head of how do we change how it works from a design point of view, and how it will affect the bottom line for a hotel operator. And so, looking at packaging meals and Uber Eats and surge pricing. I think there's a lot of ways where technology is also going to help play a part. And if we look at the gig economy and in terms of how we're now getting our food to us as we work from home, I think there's an opportunity for hotels to really understand how that works and start to take a little bit of a play from those handbooks. We're working on we at Rose Bernard Studio, we have an incubator lab, and we call it projects without clients. And so we're working on this idea of we call it revending the vending machine, and how that could play a part in the hotel guest experience, where you have more of a smaller group of people being able to utilize a way of getting food to them, where the hotel could still have a brand identity behind it, and then how that helps kind of maybe reach more people and offer more, provide more services for the guest than typically what room service can do right now.
I think the key for beyond just the operations of getting food into the room, it's making sure that there's a comfortable place for guests to eat that food and consume that food. And it's, one thing if it's a single person who would be traveling for business, they, can sit at a desk or, on the bed, and maybe it's not that big of a deal. But, if you are leisure travel and traveling as a couple, and now you're kind of limited to this guest room experience, just making sure that there's a nice place for people to eat. And I think we've seen that evolution in design over the past couple years, more people embracing the bistro table instead of a traditional desk, or how can you, kind of seat two so that you can eat comfortably in a room. I just think that that's something that, may need to evolve a little bit more, and I think the outdoor space factor is going to be really the connection for a lot of hotels, because they can, still have outdoor dining, and, people can't get out of their room. I traveled last week and I was able to actually have a meal outside at a restaurant bar, and it was awesome.
Oh my God, sounds amazing.
That sounds amazing. So do you think that the trends of big crowded restaurants will change permanently? And do you think that it's trending more towards private dining rooms? Or do you think, in a few years, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't think restaurants will like the big idea of the big crowded restaurant is, people want to be seen, and you want to experience those, gatherings of large groups for celebratory experiences. So I think the big restaurant will always be there. There is this, the idea of the brasserie, this like the clanging and the noise, all that stuff is again part of that idea of theater. But also I think there's an opportunity right now where I think this pandemic is giving us an opportunity to pause and rethink everything we've been doing, and give us completely carte blanche opportunity to start with new thinking. And our studio is also working on the idea of creating private dining / private cooking experiences within a commercial space. And so, imagine where a group could come in and have a personal chef and still gather around a table and have a dining experience, but then still have someone cook for them. And we think that this could be a really great idea for hotels who may have some additional extra space. This private dining space here, this is our Grand Hyatt at SFO, creating more private dining rooms that feel like residential dining rooms. So you can really gather in a space that feels more intimate. And it's not just the back of the restaurant that was on a plan, was used for private dining because there's nothing else to use for it. And so we're looking at taking private dining to that next level and making it more of a center focus within the dining experience for hotels.
Awesome.
To kind of piggyback off of what Rob was saying, I think that these are trends that we were already seeing, funny enough, before COVID, in terms of kind of taking these larger, say you need 300 seats for a 3-meal restaurant. but you don't want to have it all visible so that somebody walks in the morning and nobody's there, and it's like, oh, I don't want to eat in this big room by myself. And so creating screening, ways to kind of shut rooms off but then open them back up when you need to have them open up. And I do think that in those cases, people are actually hoping to have the more intimate moments where they want to sit in the booth banquette or something that kind of, feels a little bit more private, even if you're in a big space that is, fun and loud. There is that kind of sense of still wanting a little privacy. So I think these are trends that were already kind of happening. And then obviously this layer of COVID has kind of made them, a little bit more apparent to everybody.
Definitely. Do you think that we will see more suites to accommodate guests eating meals in their room?
I think that's a tough question. And right now, like there's this trend of, larger suites and hotels, a bit more residential feel, which are great. But I think as, now that people are getting used to working from home, not having to travel as much for business, and the idea of the gig economy, it's going to change. It changes the bottom line in terms of the expense check and the amount of money that people have to spend when they travel for business, and so I think as we start to experience that, I think the rooms potentially will get smaller, and we'll see more micro hotels happening where people can work more remotely, but then still have an ability to go somewhere and have a meal or have it brought to them, and or in resort areas where people cannot start working more remotely. So, taking older resort hotels, and creating some space within that. This is the Portola Hotel in Monterey that we did, that allows it to be really flexible in terms of having a meal or working at a nice desk area. There's at the end of the day, the hotel game is real estate, and real estate is space. And so it's going to be, I think it'd be hard for a lot of people to convince an ownership group to carve out more space for bigger rooms, because it really doesn't apply to the ADR. This is a concept we're working on that combines a hotel, restaurant, bar, cafe, and check-in experience all in one. So it really it takes space and utilizes it at its best ability, then allows other spaces to then be reused in terms of not pushing out the walls, if you will. So really adaptive reuse right now, I think, in this thinking is going to be really important.
Definitely. How do you think hotel design will evolve to meet the needs of business guests and leisure guests? Which I'm really interested to hear how you respond to this question, because I think those are two very different, uses of hotel.
I think that this is also a trend that we were seeing prior to anything that started earlier this year, was really trying to to create brands that, really speak to the person and not necessarily to the function, what they're doing, really kind of attracting them to the space. So you're seeing a lot of these brands like Canopy or Moxie, or when I travel, I want to stay somewhere new and interesting, and that's someplace that I would just want to stay, even if I was going on a vacation, not just, I'm staying someplace because I'm here for business. I mean, sometimes you do end up staying somewhere because you want to be close to, where your meeting is or something like that. But I do think that most brands have been smart, and they've been really trying to combine those two things as best they can, so that you can kind of capture all of that audience.
Yeah, and now with more with the idea of being able to work remotely, I think that the leisure sector is going to come back a lot quicker than maybe the urban sector, just because people want to be working by the beach or in the mountains or or wherever that may be. And those hotels inherently are built for that reason. They're built for leisure, right? So you have more space to breathe. You have more ability to have an outdoor, private outdoor experience as part of your room stay. Most restaurants are mostly outside. So I think that you will see a big uptick in that. Right now with travel, unfortunately, it may be more driving destinations to do that, but there will be this great need for people wanting to get out and go work. This is the Kimpton Sawyer Hotel that we did in Sacramento. I'm actually going there next week to work for a week just to get out of my house here. So it's giving that an opportunity. This is a project we did in Dubai, creating these outdoor lounge experiences because when you have the nice weather out there, you can really take advantage of that. And so creating these indoor outdoor boxes, if you will, and giving everyone an opportunity to work where they want to work and connect with the rest of the world, I think it's going to really start to change and maybe the way developers look at property as they develop new hotels in the future.
I also think an interesting layer to that is kind of knitting together the whole multifamily layer that you've seen moving forward. Sorry, Vanessa, do you want to talk about that?
No, please go ahead. But that's exactly where I was going.
Great minds think alike.
Exactly.
But yeah, most of our projects have some sort of, multi-family component to them. And, we're seeing it just more and more, and it's been kind of a staple for a while. But I think that, this whole, all of these companies who are going remote and, letting people work in different places will stimulate that residential traffic, and people will, be like, oh, well, now that I don't have to be in New York or in San Francisco, I can go live in, Jackson Hole or something, and I just have to be like a short plane flight away. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how that changes. Like, do the formulas with, the hotel capacity and the condo capacity change or evolve because of that kind of need? People are, I think, naturally just wanting to be around nature and outside of these cities through this pandemic, but I don't see that being specific to the pandemic moving forward. I think there's always been this, thirst for nature. We have so much screen time these days, and it's kind of the exact opposite. So it's a nice complement. So I think that'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, that was what I was going to. That's where I was going with that. We've seen. Also, before the pandemic, we started working on several adventure hotels that are in the mountains and places like Lake Tahoe, where we're doing a project with yurts and tree houses and cabins, and it is fantastic and fun. And it's not the only one that we're seeing. And it's been it's something that started actually before that. This is one of the yurts. It started before the pandemic, but it's really been it's really an incredible opportunity for people like ourselves to get out of the city and go, and you can work in a yurt, you can be in a treehouse and do a Zoom call. I mean, if there is a silver lining to all of this, that is it. That I think that it's going to be a great opportunity for us to get out and do things maybe that we wouldn't normally do, just because we want to get out of our comfort zone. But again, we're also doing a lot of multifamily as well, because I think that people are looking at their home environment is a whole different animal. When you're working and living in your home, you really need to make sure that space is comfortable from where you're working from. This is one of our multifamily properties in New York City, where we spent 4 years on it, and 5 design firms, and 3 towers on the west side of Manhattan. It's really incredible. It's called Waterline Square. And it has been an incredible experience working with all of those design firms, and everybody just working so differently and learning so much from these different teams. But again, I think that we're seeing a lot more we are going to see, like Kiko said, a lot more of the nature-driven properties like we were talking about.
Awesome, thank you. What does the future of hotel guest rooms look like?
Tech, I think tech. I mean, at the end of the day, high touch is always going to be there, right? Right now, no one wants to touch anything, but staying in a hotel, the minute you start removing personalities from a hotel and people from hotels in terms of service models, it just takes away the human spirit and the kind of gestalt of what it is, like checking in, to a hotel in a foreign land or whatever that may be, or down the street because you want to get away from your family or whatever. So I think from a room's point of view, more efficient use of space. Of course, everyone's talking about cleaner use of materials and better surfaces and how we clean. That's what we're seeing. This is the Kimpton Sawyer Hotel in Sacramento, which is a really, really fun place to stay. And it's minimizing the amount of things in the room, but not making it so sterile. And so that's going to really, I think design is going to play a key part in that. And then the use of technology in terms of cleaning, lighting, and communicating with the front desk, I think will play a bigger part as well.
Great, thank you. And then I'm curious if you all think there will be more pods or villas versus large buildings with lots of rooms. I know that's probably dependent on where the hotel is located, whether it's a big city that doesn't have a lot of space or, somewhere with more land. So curious what you think about that.
Kiko, what do you think?
I'm thinking out loud, I guess yes is the answer.
Still going to need
again,
the
I think that those are themes that you've been seeing kind of prior to COVID. So I do think that they'll continue, and I do think that they'll complement what's been happening. But yeah, I see all of these things in the future. I think quickly is the question. I think just we're all just kind of waiting to see what 6 months ago you couldn't have told me that we would still be in this. So I think. Yeah,
I think too. Like to this point, it does. The world of hospitality doesn't happen overnight. Design doesn't happen overnight. It sometimes takes 4 years, 5 years, sometimes 10 years. We've been working on projects, and you have to adapt, right? Because if you start something 4 years ago and it opens 4 years later, you have to be able to be really nimble to adapt to what that consumer wants at the day of opening. And again, it goes back to just it's a real estate game, and making sure that you can pack in as much opportunity for guests to experience that financially is rewarding for the guest and for the owner. I think there's also going to be a trend, particularly in like-mindedness. This is the Grand Hyatt at SFO that Kiko and I both worked on. It's a little cafe there called Twin Crafts. But the idea of like-mindedness has really been something that we've been tossing around at Rose Bernard of bringing smaller groups of people together and being able to create those opportunities. So, to your question of villas or pods, imagine being able to check into a hotel and that all the other guests, whether it's 8 rooms or 12 rooms or whatever that may be, they all are there for that same reason. They're all there for a local event, whether it's an event in Golden Gate, like I can't even remember.
Outside Lands.
Outside Lands. Thank you, Vanessa. or like, so imagine coming to San Francisco, checking in a hotel. You're here for Outside Lands. All the other guests are there for Outside Lands too, and then the hotel, through programming, through like-mindedness, can maybe have something that's additional for guests to be able to reconnect again. So there, as much as we're all right now in a mindset of like staying away from each other, we're always wanting to be next to each other. And we're always wanting to be able to be with people who we love and adore, whether they're strangers or not, because we all have the same beliefs and ideas to connect. And I think there's an opportunity for hotels to really become the incubus of an incubator to make it happen.
I think that's a great point, Rob. I think especially for maybe a solo traveler that's traveling out of the country and wants to connect and meet new people, what you're talking about is a great way for hotels to utilize that. And I think in the future we will see that too.
Well, I think you'll see that also, just to kind of piggyback through that last thought. Technology and social media has been such, powerful tool that's kind of affected all of us so much in the past 10 years. And really understanding how that will continue to connect us moving forward. So, now I have a personal trainer on my cell phone. It's called Peloton. And I can take it to any hotel and do a workout in my hotel room. And, so to have that content that we just didn't have before, and to have hotels partner with those types of services, there's a whole community that you could tap into. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how brands and properties kind of move forward with that as a resource.
Mm-hmm. It's Kiko, so funny because it's the same. I have had the same experience where I don't think that I would have never gone to the gym as much as I've been able to work out at home, just because of having it on my phone and being able to now travel and bring my trainer with me. It's fantastic.
And then having a little and making sure that the design of that room gives you that space to do that. Yeah. And so that maybe,
in the entryway.
like
sturdy,
do we really need that big
chairs.
club chair anymore? I'd rather if not, maybe it's more of that space to put a yoga mat down and get on your smart mirror or your smartphone and really have this really great, solo experience that combines like well-being as part of your daily routine, as part of your stay.
And that's exactly what you were saying. I think this is a silver lining about all of this, is that we're looking at these things and able to really get creative and think about things in a totally different way. And I think that I am so excited to see what you guys come up with.
Definitely.
I feel like I cut out. Sorry.
The big trend in the past has been designing hotels for Instagrammable moments. How will this change, and what will be the new driver?
That's a tough question. It's funny. I think when everything, social media is huge. It goes beyond, and I think anyone's thinking of how it becomes such a marketing tool, for whether you're a hotel or a restaurant or a branding company or whatever that may be, or an individual. Like if you just think about all the influencers out there, and I think I feel that when this all happened back in March, that there was kind of a downturn of people exploiting their lives, if you will, because there's it's affecting a lot of people right now, and travel is not as easy to do, and so I think design, like this is a Grand Hyatt SFO. We work with Jacob Mashimoto to collaborate with him on this beautiful art sculpture within the space. And so I think art is always going to be part of design. And when we can collaborate with artists and artisans, whether they're local or internationally, there is always going to be that opportunity for Instagram moments. And if we can change the narrative where people are taking more photos of art and architecture, this is a green wall we did at the Portola Hotel in Monterey, there's always going to be a moment for someone to want to take a photo. That's inherently going to be that way. And I think design always is going to play a part of that. And so I don't think we should dismiss it, but I think there may be a difference in terms of what people are really focusing on, how they feel makes them important by what they share on social media. And hopefully it's art, architecture, design, culture, food, all the things that we all want to see and share with each other.
Definitely.
I think I want to use this opportunity to weave in a very important part of this conversation, which is sustainability. And, I think that the future of what we're doing really needs to focus on less temporary kind of solutions and Band-Aids and, creating non-authentic items to kind of answer that, Instagrammable moment, I should say, and really using people's resources to create beautiful, timeless, obvious, current, interesting, fun, active spaces. But as Rob was saying, to have them feel authentic and to be, really featuring architecture, featuring design, featuring the locale that you're in, rather than something that is a little bit more temporary, is what I'm hoping will be the future of where we're going. I think that hospitality is a huge contributor to what's happening with just in terms of operations. Just there's a lot of waste and there's a lot of I think environmental damage that we could really we really need to kind of think about what we've been doing and what's worked and what hasn't worked, and how can we, all push ourselves individually and each other to be better, and to really kind of fight for our environment. Because really what needs to happen is we really need to be thinking about hospitality from a wellness perspective. And so not only is it wellness for us as humans, but it's for the planet that we're on. So I think just making sure that we're, we're respecting that is hopefully what the future will be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's going to be a trend of valuing experiences over opulence. And then how that really makes a big change in how we are affecting the environment, right? And going to destinations where we can, maybe, it would be amazing if part of travel was always giving back to the locale that it's in, whether that's, helping the environment with cleanup or just sending the message, back to the question of social media. We have a power of sending messages super, easily in terms of reaching out to a broader community. And so if we can change the narrative to focus on our world, Kiko, you said this the other day, and I probably will misquote you, but you said that, the world takes care of us and we have to take care of the world again. And you said more eloquently than I did, but it's a huge part of hospitality. Like you mentioned it, we as travelers have the ability to change the world for a better place.
Definitely. Thank you for touching on that, Kiko and Rob. And so I know you already talked a little bit about technology, but are you adding new technology to your designs for both practical reasons and the enhancement of spaces?
I would say yes. I think that, one thing that we're seeing all across the board in all different types of work, whether it be private clubs, multifamily, hospitality, is everybody needs to plug in pretty much everywhere. You're always going to have a phone that's dying or a laptop that's dying or some sort of technology that you have with you. So to have that capability, people aren't necessarily only working at desks. They're working at sofas. They're working at, outside on a patio. And so just kind of really making sure that you have that accessibility, I think is just is kind of the simplest form of how we're seeing it right now. But I think technology has always been such a huge driver for design for hotels. I mean, I look 15 years ago when I was in the industry, started in the industry, and we always had those kind of built-in technology packs that would be like built into the dresser, built into things, and you're always like, yeah, the jack bags.
The jack.
And so, but that was like very future at that point. Like that was a huge thing. So, I think it's always, we're always looking to see like what's new and what's different, what's exciting to see, a lot of these companies that are making mirrors for bathrooms, just to see them using the UV technology in terms of disinfecting bathroom facilities. There's nothing that's really changing to the design. It was a backlit mirror. It was always a backlit mirror, but they were able to weave in a part of technology to make it do something more than what it was already doing. So technology to me is super exciting, and I love to kind of use new technology where we can. So I'm always excited to see more.
Great, thank you. So as you're saying, technology plays such a big role in our modern lives. Humans are seeking more no-touch technology, even more so now. How will design and technology work together to achieve healthy and safe, low-touch environments that also retain the ambiance the hotel seeks to achieve and the feel of a relaxing space? So having it not be, have a sterile feel, still welcoming.
It's going to come down to, it's a bit of a labor model as well with hotels. UV light technology, I think, is going to be huge in how we clean rooms and clean spaces moving forward in hospitality. It requires less personal responsibility. I always believe that a barista versus a coffee machine that makes an espresso, you get the personality of the barista, but also you probably get the better coffee out of the machine, because sometimes the barista is having a bad day, whatever that may be, right? So same thing with the check-in experience. When you have more human interaction, it's nice to have, but maybe it becomes more focused on where it really needs to be relevant. And so the check-in experience doesn't necessarily have to have this human connection between checking in and checking out, but I think a concierge experience needs to have more of a connection, right? Or someone who's going to help you find the best hotel or restaurant in a city. Someone who touches your table and says, "Hey, can I get you something else?" I think that's where we can really experience bringing spaces together and using technology to help limit some of the excess of the human experience versus focusing it more on where guests can really connect with someone at a hotel, where it really makes sense for them to have that moment, and then it gives them an opportunity to also then have the private moment that they need, when they're traveling.
Awesome.
The companies, there are so many new materials, and there are textiles now that have come out that have 1 million double rubs and is UV safe. I think our manufacturers are going to start really coming up with some amazing things. I know that we can order food off of a menu on our mirror. Do things like that where you're not talking, you're not on the phone, so you don't have to deal with all of that and touching things. I think that it's going to make us relook at things and do things in a much more efficient, and it's going to be a lot a cleaner way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you. So, as travelers begin to seek nature-driven experiences, how will you work to bring the outdoors in for those business travelers that may not be able to enjoy much time outside? Will we see an increase in indoor gardens or green spaces?
Absolutely. I think that's always been a trend for the last, let's call it 20 some years, right? Of greening our industry, if you will. And that happens with, that first moment of the guest experience. And so, and I think you'll see more of it in new build development going forward. And then where there's an opportunity in renovation work, trying to pull in a bit of that. This is a quick little restaurant project we did. It just opened last week, actually, up in Novato, and we took an underutilized outdoor space and created a little outdoor bar experience so the guests can have this little, moment of connecting with nature up in Marin. And so I think whenever there is an opportunity, I think now more than ever, designers could have a larger voice and saying to their developer or their hotel, the brand or the ownership group, like, hey, let's incorporate more green space or more outdoor space into this, and really pushing and driving that the moment for guests who really want to seek the outdoors as part of their stay.
So I think one interesting thing, part of that question that kind of made me think was, when you're bringing the outdoors in, if you're talking about, these living walls and all the beautiful, kind of greening of interior spaces, as much as that is wonderful, I've talked to several GMs of, that have these beautiful walls, and I've asked them, how do you maintain these? And it's literally one person who that is their job, to make sure that the plants are switched out and that they get natural light outside and that they're, watered correctly. And it's really a lot to commit to from a, operation standpoint. So I think as much as it can be done kind of authentically, Rob, I like how you said, kind of woven more into the fabric of the building, like in, truly exterior places. When you go to Singapore, you see these fantastic, skyscrapers that definitely have green kind of in the DNA of who they are as the building. And so they're, watered appropriately, lit by natural light appropriately, and able to kind of, really let the greenery flourish. So I think it's that careful balance, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Because if we're trying to cut down on personnel who is focusing on this, then, you also don't want to have, an atrium space that has a bunch of dead plants. And so it's that, of how we less people, but then, so is there really a proper sprinkler system that is making sure that we're keeping this alive? So I think it's technical, but I love to see it when I do. I just, everybody that I talk to says it's pretty challenging.
Yeah, and that's why I think in new developments and new buildings, there's a better opportunity to design into that, right? Versus a renovation project where the infrastructure may not be there to do that.
Right.
That's really interesting. Thank you, guys. So we only have about 5 minutes left. We all know 2020 has been a tough year, but it has taught us a lot. What have you learned from this year? What trends from this year do you think are going to carry on into the future? And what are the silver linings and innovation that will come out of this period of time? What are they?
I mean, I definitely think the working remote opportunity is not going to go away. People will go back to work and people will go back to working in an office. That's inherently going to have to be. But I think that more and more companies are going to see that they're going to be able to save quite a bit of money on people being able to work from home. And there, there's been a lot of studies out there of, everyone's kind of measuring the success of working from home right now. And quite honestly, I think more so it's people are a bit more productive, right? I think, well, we're only in 6 months of this, so we'll see what happens if we're still in it for a year. But I think the idea of working remotely, being able to work where you want, is going to be a trend that's going to stay with us. I don't even think it's a trend anymore. It's a way of living. And hotels will adapt to that. Design will adapt to that. I'm sure there's going to be more ergonomic furniture that's going to come out of this, just because, like, I don't know how many times I've felt myself like sitting on a pillow or like it's just like, where am I working today? Trying to find a new space. So that's gonna, I think that's a silver lining as well. There's going to be a lot more opportunities for us to be really creative, to be positive about where we are. And move, and as designers and experts in this industry, have a bigger voice, to really relate what we're all experiencing right now and take it to that next level. I think there's huge opportunity, and we have to continue to think that way, and stay positive.
It's definitely been.
Sorry, Vanessa, you go first.
It's okay. It's definitely underlined the way that we set up our company and the culture, I think, and it's amazing to see so many other companies adapting it, because having that work-life balance and being able to, as Rob, you were saying earlier, take your laptop out to your patio in the morning and working out there. I mean, you're just not going to get that if you're in an office. And I think that's one of the many things, or being able to go to that 10 a.m. yoga class that you couldn't do if you were in an office. I think that it's an exciting thing to see that it's being adapted in so many other places with so many other people. And really, this, again, I think one of the positives is that we're able to spend more time with our family, some good and some bad, but it gets a little crazy, and it's good to have a place to escape sometimes. But it's also, it's been incredible opportunity to spend time, more time with our families.
Love that.
So I'm just gonna I totally agree with what both Vanessa and Rob had said, and just to kind of, say for us, it's been really about getting back to basics as an industry. We are really focusing on what we should be focusing, which is health and wellness of our guests, and yes, we get to create these beautiful spaces, but we need to be thinking about that as our number one. I think just individually, that's what we're doing for our company, and and beyond. And then really it's kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, beyond human wellness, is we really have this partnership with the planet, and we really need to be challenging ourselves to all think about how we can be better stewards and take care of the planet. And I think that what I've found that's been really exciting, that's come out of this time, that everybody has a little bit more time to be a little bit more thoughtful. And when you're shopping for a new pair of jeans, is it a company that has sustainable practices? Is it a B Corp? Is it, really holding all of these companies that we're working with to a higher standard, to make sure that we are really putting the best product for the environment out there. And that's not going to happen overnight, but I think it's a conversation that I think is really important.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. I have so many other questions I could ask, but we have come to the end of our panel. And if you have any closing remarks you'd like to add, I welcome you to share your social media pages so that everyone watching can follow you.
I think it for us at Rose Bernard Studio is always looking, it's future forward always. Like it's the only thing that drives you, is to always look at what you're working on, and how you can challenge yourself to be a better person, a better designer, a better addition to the hospitality industry, and that's our philosophy, and we love being challenged, and this is definitely a big challenge. And something that we didn't want, but it's here, and you work through it, and I think at the end of the day, our industry is going to come out on top.
We're an amazing industry, and we've got amazing people in this industry. It's gonna come out much better, I think. Like Kiko said, focusing on who we're working with and being more thoughtful about what we're doing, and going back to basics, is really it's how we're going to get through all of this, and just looking forward.
Yeah, I think what I'm most excited by is the fact that the hospitality industry has obviously took a bunch of hits, but it's just great to see our community evolve and change. And even though we can't physically be together at these events and shows and panels, and that I think we've all used technology to our advantage and still kept our connection. So I think that as much as we're all really excited for this all to pass, it's been great to see that it also has been able to kind of weather this storm together. So it's been really, really fantastic for me, even just to have these two friends to rely on, while we're trying to just get creative and think about, what's next.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Definitely. Well, thank you all for your feedback. This was so interesting, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan.
Thanks for having us, Megan.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Cosentino.
It was fun.
Thanks, Cosentino.